Have you ever wondered who you might become if you stop trying to blend in? Within each of us lurks a silent struggle, the crushing pressure to conform, to silence our true selves for the comfort of the crowd. Beneath the surface, this battle can erode our mental well-being, keep us from our fullest potential, and trap us in lives that don't quite fit. This book is your guide, a beacon for those who dare to question, who crave independence from the relentless urge to follow. Are you ready to confront the hidden forces shaping your thoughts and break free from the chains of conformity? Think for yourself. How to Beat the Pressure to Fit In, written and published by Mindset Liberation. Chapter 1. Recognize the herd mentality. In the deep corridors of our minds, an ancient instinct quietly tugs at our decisions, the need to belong. From early childhood, we are subtly conditioned to blend in with the group, to seek affirmation in approval, and to fear the silent isolation of standing alone. This need isn't a modern phenomenon, nor is it a small nuisance easily dismissed with positive thinking. The pull of the herd mentality runs deep within our collective DNA, tracing back to primal days when safety demanded sameness. It kept our ancestors from wandering away from campfires into the predatory darkness, and it rewarded those who adapted their beliefs and actions to fit the collective norm. Today, however, that instinct finds new life in everyday choices, pushing us to abandon our own beliefs even when the stakes are nothing more than social comfort or fleeting praise. Across the world, the evidence is quietly staggering. In a series of famous psychological experiments, such as Solomon Asch's conformity tests, ordinary people repeatedly chose clearly incorrect answers about simple visual questions, just to echo the group's consensus. These results don't merely reflect academic theories. They lay bare an unsettling truth about how pervasive and persuasive the herd mentality truly is. It is estimated that more than 70% of individuals at some point will suppress their real thoughts or values rather than risk being seen as different, a fact confirmed by recent surveys in both professional and social contexts. Even in environments dedicated to free thought and creativity, subtle but relentless pressures can lead us to second-guess our instincts. Over time, this repeated self-abandonment can show up as quiet anxiety, persistent low mood, or an underlying dissatisfaction that can't be easily named. Beneath the cheerful surface of fitting in, the silent cost to mental health can be profound. The consequences of going unnoticed may seem minor, even harmless, when viewed through the lens of daily life. We laugh politely at jokes we don't find funny, say yes when we mean no, and nod along to opinions that conflict with our deepest values. Each time we silence our inner voice, we drift a little further from our authentic selves. Popular culture, education, and even family expectations can drive these habits, making it seem as though losing ourselves is the only path to peace. In reality, this prolonged surrender of individual thought can strip us of confidence and muddy our sense of direction. Over months and years, it wears down self-respect, leading to a quiet crisis of identity that even close friends may not notice. The power of herd mentality is underestimated because its roots are almost invisible. Social media algorithms sharpen the pressure, bombarding us daily with curated images and bold opinions that demand our agreement. We turn to group chats and trending topics for guidance, increasingly afraid to express difference, even when our mental health is begging for honesty and relief. This first truth is rarely discussed because it reveals an uncomfortable reality. To truly care for our minds, we must first wake up to the silent forces shaping us from the shadows. Recognizing the herd mentality is not about blaming the group, but about opening our eyes to how easily its rules seep into our lives. With awareness comes the power to question, to pause, and to reclaim the authorship of our own thoughts. Here, at the beginning, we are invited to look within and ask, when did I last truly think for myself? The answer may surprise you if you are brave enough to look. The cost of the herd mentality is far greater than short-lived acceptance. Each time we compromise our genuine beliefs to match the views of others, a subtle internal conflict takes root. This tension manifests first in emotions. Many individuals report feeling uneasy or hollow after agreeing with something they inwardly question. Emotional dissonance grows as we participate in conversations or decisions that move against our better judgment. And over time, that hollow feeling becomes anxiety, self-doubt, or persistent sadness. Clinical psychologists find a striking connection between social conformity and increased stress, as people become silently devastated by the contradiction between their outward behaviors and private values. The burden may start as a fleeting discomfort, but repeated over months and years, it poisons the well-being it pretends to protect. Decision-making, too, falls victim to the powerful tug of group influence. Instead of weighing risks, benefits, and ethics objectively, many find themselves following the crowd in crucial moments, at work, in families, or among friends. Renowned studies such as the Stanford Prison Experiment and Milgram's obedience research have shown just how quickly reasonable people can become participants in actions they would usually condemn. In these iconic cases, test subjects, thought to be rational and self-directing, fell into extreme behaviors merely because authorities or peers implied it was normal. On a smaller everyday scale, this same drive cultivates regret and weak boundaries. We make career decisions, choose relationships, or accept opportunities not because they align with our dreams, but because they fit neatly into others' expectations. The outcome is a trail of choices that feel borrowed, often leaving us bewildered by the quiet realization that we hardly recognize ourselves in the lives we are leading. Friendships, romances, and family bonds are not immune to this dynamic. When herd mentality shapes our thoughts, relationships become shallow imitations of what we truly crave. The desire to avoid conflict or remain likable leads many to water down their opinions and desires until their genuine needs go unmet. Real-world examples can be found everywhere. In the colleague who remains silent about unfair treatment, fearing the label troublemaker, or the high school student who joins in teasing another peer just to maintain group approval. This isn't simply peer pressure in the cliched sense. It is a deep, intimate surrender of authenticity for the sake of peaceful belonging. In these moments, even love can feel transactional, a trade of self for comfort. Loneliness takes root, paradoxically, as we stand surrounded by people with whom we never share our real selves. The gradual destruction of self-esteem is the silent consequence that few speak of. Psychologists warn that repeated self-silencing becomes internalized shame. The unspoken belief grows that one's true opinions and identities must be hidden because they are unacceptable or foolish. Over time, this erodes the very foundation of confidence. We begin to doubt not just our choices, but our basic worthiness. In one clinical case study, a young professional described slowly giving up dreams to pursue only what her peers admired. She rose quickly at her company, but became plagued by imposter syndrome and a sense of fraudulent happiness. The shadow of the group loomed over her every move, dampening all achievement with suspicion that it wasn't really meant for her at all. Why do we surrender ourselves so fully? It is a relic of biology. Ancient brains built for tribal survival, combined with modern lives wired for relentless comparison. The universality of this experience cannot be overstated. Almost everyone, at some point, falls prey because the pain of exclusion is neurologically real. Research using brain imaging reveals that social rejection activates the same regions as physical pain. The drive to fit in is not a simple weakness, but a built-in reflex, reinforced by culture, upbringing, and even our digital communities, day after day. Recognizing this is daunting, yet it marks the first step on the journey to autonomy. This hidden battle unfolds in almost every sphere of life, often so subtly that most of us never notice until the effects become impossible to ignore. In the next part, we will expose the concealed warning signs, the subtle behaviors and inner flashes of discomfort that reveal when the herd mentality is overtaking your choices without you even knowing. The true marks of the herd mentality do not always shout. Often, they whisper through the tiniest details of our daily lives, leaving most people oblivious to their presence. When conformity takes hold of the mind, it expresses itself in quiet but pervasive ways. A sudden hesitation before voicing an original thought, the clipped silence following a group decision that felt wrong, or the emotional ache lingering after agreeing to join a plan that runs counter to inner values. One office worker, for example, found herself logging endless extra hours alongside colleagues, not because a manager demanded it, but because the prevailing unspoken rule in her workplace was that taking time for oneself signaled weakness. Over months, the weight of those added hours became chronic exhaustion and creeping resentment. She could not recall when the group's priorities had so thoroughly replaced her own, but the subtle fear of exclusion had slowly reshaped her every decision. Patterns of the herd mentality multiply across settings, turning even simple decisions into moments of hidden anxiety. Consider the graduate student who listened quietly while classmates discussed academic theories that clashed with his own interpretations. Again and again, he suppressed his perspective, fearing that raising a dissenting view would single him out as naive or even foolish. The loss was not limited to academic integrity. The stress followed him home and spilled into sleepless nights, feeding a growing sense of invisibility and disconnection. Such scenarios play out countless times each day, where small choices build upon each other and permission to be fully oneself gradually erodes. In some cases, people may find they no longer recognize whose preferences or plans they are following at all. The question, "Is this truly what I want, or what others expect from me?" begins to haunt. Social settings provide another methodical stage for the herd mentality to reveal itself. During family gatherings, a person remains silent while listening to comments that cut against long-held beliefs on relationships or morality. The fear of awkwardness and rejection keeps them from speaking up, yet as the evening closes, a heavy emptiness sinks in. In intimate partnerships, too, the desire to maintain harmony drives individuals to subdue genuine preferences or hobbies, until everything from meal choices to life goals becomes the collective property of the relationship, not an autonomous act. The underlying anxiety, the persistent reluctance to assert needs and dislikes, directly undermines emotional authenticity. Depression and self-doubt may gain ground, exploiting the gap left by ignored inner voices. It's crucial to understand that these manifestations are not signs of weakness, but of deeply rooted survival strategies once critical for our ancestors' cohesion and protection. In modern contexts, however, this adapted reflex too often limits personal happiness, emotional resilience, and even professional creativity. Recognition marks the point where this self-defeating cycle can be interrupted. By becoming attuned to the subtle symptoms, whether it's sacrificing opinions, suppressing needs, or feeling a recurring tension around specific people or situations, readers begin the process of breaking the pattern. Where awareness grows, change can begin, and the path toward honest living slowly unfolds. As we close this chapter, it is essential to remember that identifying the influence of the herd mentality is only the first step in reclaiming your mental health and your sense of self. To break free from these unconscious constraints is not merely brave, it is healing. In the next chapter, we turn the spotlight on the powerful forces behind popular beliefs, revealing how questioning mainstream thought can dismantle invisible cages and empower you to act on your truth. This journey has only begun. Stay with us as we pierce the surface and delve deeper. Your thoughts, your questions, and your stories matter. Join Mindset Liberation's community and make your voice heard as we move one step closer to genuine self-autonomy. Chapter 2. Question popular beliefs. Real power is born the moment you realize that every belief you hold can be examined and chosen, rather than absorbed by default. This dawning awareness is the direct antidote to herd mentality, cracking open the invisible cage of assumptions that so often govern our actions and feelings. At the heart of personal transformation lies the skill of questioning, not with hostility or cynicism, but with a spirit of openness and curiosity. The most profound shifts in mindset and emotional well-being occur when we stop taking popular beliefs at face value and start to interrogate what we think we know. By developing the courage to ask, "Why do I believe this?" we begin to trace the origins of our mental burdens, and more importantly, uncover our power to free ourselves from them. Tracing back through time, the solution of questioning widely shared beliefs is woven through human progress itself. History is filled with those few individuals who dared to challenge the status quo. Innovators, reformers, artists, and scientists who spotted the flaws in the common consensus and went on to change the world. Their willingness to question gave rise to new understandings, breakthroughs, and movements that have lifted humanity higher. In the spirit of these trailblazers, psychologists have consistently proven that people who regularly examine the why behind community customs and cultural narratives enjoy better psychological resilience. One recent study from Stanford University found that individuals who were trained to ask themselves reflective questions during moments of doubt reported significantly less stress, greater emotional control, and stronger life satisfaction than those who adhered unquestioningly to common beliefs, particularly in times of uncertainty. Consider the experience of Mia, a new manager at a bustling marketing firm. When she entered the office, she quickly sensed an unspoken rule guiding every step her team took: overwork equals commitment. For months, Mia accepted late nights and weekend emails, believing that she too must constantly sacrifice her time to prove her dedication. One evening, fighting weariness and family strain, she paused and asked herself a question few ever speak aloud: who decided this is what dedication looks like? Her inquiry sparked curiosity rather than rebellion. Mia began talking with her colleagues and researching healthier work cultures, only to find she wasn't alone in her doubts. Others secretly felt exhausted but didn't know how to question the accepted wisdom without backlash. Through clear conversations and a willingness to challenge inherited practices, Mia slowly helped her team experiment with new, more balanced routines and witnessed boosts in productivity, team happiness, and her own personal sense of authority. Stories like Mia's are not rare. They are the silent dreams of professionals, students, parents, and leaders across the globe who wonder what might happen if they stopped taking the world as it is given and started shaping it anew. According to a global survey by the World Economic Forum, 64% of people surveyed admitted they often suppress silent reservations about commonly accepted practices in their fields or communities, fearing judgment or criticism. And yet, those who took the smaller risk of voicing their questions showed twice as much career progress and well-being after just 12 months. The lesson is unmistakable. By examining, confronting, and rewriting the rules that govern our lives, even if step by step, we position ourselves to rise above stress, stagnation, and emotional fatigue. This chapter marks a turning point, not only in understanding mental health, but in reclaiming the ability to sculpt our own lives. You are not powerless in the face of popular beliefs. You have the strength and intelligence to inspect, revise, and replace them. The skill of gentle, persistent questioning is your compass toward joy and self-mastery. With this foundation, you can move forward knowing the story you live will finally belong to you, not just to the world you inherited. Stepping into the habit of questioning popular beliefs is like switching on a powerful inner light in a room that has been dimly lit for years. This practice disrupts the automatic responses bred by social conditioning and makes the silent pressures of conformity visible, giving you the chance to consciously accept, revise, or reject them. Scientific research consistently shows that this act of mindful interrogation is transformative for mental health, and not just in abstract or philosophical terms. A seminal longitudinal study published in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology tracked hundreds of individuals who were encouraged through structured exercises to regularly examine common social and cultural norms they encountered in school, work, and personal interactions. The results were decisive. Participants who engaged in this active questioning experienced reduced symptoms of anxiety and persistent stress, developed higher levels of self-efficacy, and showed a marked increase in creative problem-solving. These mental health gains were not fleeting. They persisted and even strengthened over time as participants became less dependent on others' approval and more rooted in independent reasoning. The effectiveness of questioning as a tool for overcoming the pressure to fit in lies in its ability to put cognitive distance between your true self and the reflexive absorption of group beliefs. When you slow down and genuinely interrogate why you're feeling obligated to subscribe to a collective view, your brain is forced to switch out of autopilot mode. Neurological imaging studies reveal that this process triggers activation in areas of the brain responsible for critical thinking and long-term planning, functions that are key to self-determined living. In effect, questioning rewires the brain. Rather than blindly following familiar scripts, you develop a new habit, pausing, reflecting, and deciding on your own terms. This conscious interruption of old patterns sets off a cascade of positive effects on your mental health, fortifying boundaries, resilience, and stability in the face of social pressure. The power of this method emerges even more clearly through the lived experiences of those who dared to challenge their inherited belief systems. Take the story of David, a young man raised in a conservative community where deviation from traditional career paths was met with suspicion. For years, David struggled with a faint but nagging unhappiness, feeling disconnected from his prescribed future. His transformation began not with defiant rebellion, but with a single, honest question. What evidence do I have that my worth depends on this job or that role? This line of inquiry unsettled the foundation of old assumptions and set him on a path of deeper exploration, discussing possibilities with mentors beyond his insular circle and reading the latest research on fulfillment and motivation. The energy from this brave questioning sharpened David's clarity. He realized that the guilt weighing him down was not truly about disappointing his family, it was about betraying his own potential. Equipped with this insight, he made careful, self-authored changes, and with each small step, his anxiety subsided and his optimism grew. 3 years later, having chosen a career and lifestyle that aligned with his authentic values, David reported feeling genuinely alive and capable of facing social disapproval without caving under the old fear. His case underscores how questioning can catalyze not only a single decision, but an overhaul of one's mental and emotional landscape. The urgency of mastering this skill cannot be overstated. As you start practicing the art of thoughtful questioning, you create a firewall against the insidious creep of outside opinions into the fabric of your psyche. The difference between drifting and living purposefully is not as vast as it seems. It is often the smallest question, honestly asked, that tilts the balance. By giving yourself permission to break from automatic agreement and escort every popular belief to the threshold of your own scrutiny, you seize power once lost to the crowd. In doing so, you reposition yourself in the world not as a bystander, but as a conscious architect of your inner and outer reality. Changing the way you interact with popular beliefs need not be overwhelming. In fact, it thrives on simple actions practiced with consistency. The journey begins in quiet, everyday moments when you encounter ideas that are widely accepted but seem to tug at your sense of self. Instead of brushing aside discomfort, allow yourself to pause and observe your immediate reaction. When you feel that hint of pressure or unease, whether it's about a workplace routine, a family expectation, or a trend among friends, take a slow, deep breath and silently ask, do I actually believe this, or am I accepting it out of habit? This split-second reflection is powerful. It opens a small but vital space between you and the tide of groupthink. From there, try an easy and effective journaling exercise to solidify this habit. At the end of each day, pick one instance when you noticed yourself agreeing with others. Write down what the belief or expectation was, why it mattered to the group, and most importantly, whether it felt true to you. Then brainstorm alternative perspectives or possible reasons to hold a different view. This creative exploration gives you practice disagreeing safely on paper, a step that builds confidence to do the same in real time. Even after 1 week of nightly reflection, many people report feeling lighter, clearer, and more at ease with their views, no longer weighed down by the heavy need to conform. Another practical approach is to rehearse tiny acts of assertiveness in low-pressure environments. For example, challenge yourself during harmless conversations, perhaps commenting that you're not interested in the latest movie everyone raves about, or gently sharing a different take on an office lunch spot. Despite how trivial these actions may seem, each one is a building block that trains your brain to withstand and even enjoy the feeling of thinking differently. Savor the victories, however small. They are proof you can handle minor social friction and survive with your self-esteem intact. If you do feel anxieties surface, a racing heart, or the worry of being overlooked, remind yourself that this discomfort is only temporary and notice how quickly it fades with repetition. Every practice strengthens your core confidence. To further your mind shift, experiment with asking deeper questions when exposed to a new group opinion or tradition. Consider, who benefits from this belief? Or, what assumption am I making if I agree? Or, what evidence would I need before believing this is right for me? These questions move you from passive acceptance to active investigation. Gradually, you'll find yourself responding rather than reacting to rumors, trends, or unspoken rules. Over weeks, these exercises enhance your sense of mental ownership and autonomy. Celebrate each time you spot a popular belief and choose consciously whether to accept, modify, or set it aside. Remember, progress is about momentum. Each time you pause, reflect, question, and act, no matter how gently, you train your mind to filter the world through the lens of your own intelligence and values. You will rapidly discover new freedoms and possibilities simply because you've replaced passive compliance with thoughtful participation. As you master this transformative skill, you'll be ready to move forward to the next level of growth, getting crystal clear about what actually matters to you. In our next chapter, we will dig into defining your core values, those guiding principles that become your compass in every situation, providing stability even when the opinions of others swirl all around. Your feedback fuels our content, so if this chapter resonated with you, please subscribe to Mindset Liberation and let us know your insights or personal experiences in the comments. Your voice helps this growing circle become a place of genuine empowerment. Let's keep rising together. Chapter 3. Define your own values. True liberation begins not just with rejecting ideas that feel wrong, but by actively choosing and embracing what feels deeply right. Defining your own values is the single most powerful step you can take to fortify your sense of self against the constant flood of outside pressures. Every individual who lives with clarity about their values gains a steady inner compass, one that offers direction during confusion and strength in moments of doubt or conflict. Most people never pause long enough to consciously define what truly matters to them, and so they drift from one expectation to another, always searching for fulfillment but not knowing what it truly looks like. The history of personal success, whether told through the lives of renowned leaders or the everyday victories of ordinary individuals, repeatedly proves that those who articulate clear values are more resilient, less easily manipulated, and far more capable of finding both happiness and achievement on their own terms. This transformative journey of value setting does not come from nowhere. Its roots lie in psychology and philosophy, where great minds have long debated the nature of wisdom and the secret to flourishing. Research from the field of positive psychology has identified a strong correlation between value clarity and life satisfaction. Dr. Martin Seligman, a pioneering psychologist in this area, discovered that people who identify and consciously structure their lives around their top values show markedly lower levels of stress, anxiety, and regret. One particular longitudinal study published in the Journal of Happiness Studies followed college graduates 5 and 10 years after creating clear value statements. Those who referenced and actively used their value guidelines in significant decisions were 2 times more likely to report overall well-being and describe their life as meaningful compared with those who made decisions without clear internal direction. The story of Amanda, an accountant in her early 30s, brings this solution vividly to life. Despite a good job and supportive family, Amanda felt a constant undertow of restlessness and indecision in her relationships and career. She spent hours reading opinions online, trying to absorb what others said was best, but always landed in the same space of uncertainty. Her breakthrough came during a corporate retreat that encouraged each participant to write down the 5 personal values most influential in their lives, and then reflect on whether their daily choices truly aligned with them. Amanda realized to her surprise that her core values included creativity, integrity, growth, family, and freedom, ideas that her current routine constantly sacrificed. By clarifying, naming, and displaying those values, Amanda gave herself explicit permission to make changes. She shifted job roles, set new boundaries, and gradually reconstructed her calendar to prioritize moments of creativity and connection. The confusion and restlessness melted away, replaced by a reliable sense of motivation and sureness. Amanda no longer followed the flow just to please others, but made every step an act of self-leadership. Across the world, similar stories unfold every day, confirming with certainty that knowing your personal values is more essential than any trend or outside measure of success. More than a shield against stress, clearly defined values act as a wellspring of confidence. Motivation grows strong and steady when it is fueled by what you genuinely cherish, not by fleeting impulses or imitated priorities. As you begin to explore your own values throughout this chapter, keep in mind that power and peace reside in the deep knowledge of who you are and what you will stand for, no matter what noise surrounds you. This is your chance to turn inward, discover your anchors, and start driving your life from your own unshakable foundation. Defining your own values acts as a powerful antidote to the empty gravitational pull of conformity and the emotional exhaustion that grows from living out of alignment with your true self. This method succeeds in overcoming the problem because it rewires your attention from external approval to internal authenticity, transforming every decision from a guess into an anchored, purposeful step. When your standards and actions are based on values you have claimed as your own, the ambiguity and self-doubt that come from chasing conflicting opinions evaporate. Instead, a sense of focus and self-trust emerges, making it not only possible but natural to stand firm in the face of dissent or discomfort. Science offers indisputable validation of this effect. In a landmark meta-analysis published in Psychological Science, more than 50 international studies showed that people who regularly revisit and reaffirm a clear list of personal values display heightened psychological resilience in stressful environments. These individuals display lower rates of anxiety and depression, even when facing substantial social or professional pressure, because their responses originate from a stable core rather than from the unpredictable winds of the outside world. The act of defining values fosters self-efficacy, the unshakable belief that you can influence your circumstances and make decisions with confidence. Senior psychologist Dr. Jennifer Crocker explains that repeated alignment with self-identified values acts as a protective mental script, dampening the brain's reactivity to disapproval and diminishing the emotional spikes of doubt and guilt. In practical terms, values operate as an emotional safety net, softening the sting of rejection and reinforcing self-acceptance. Real-life examples further underline how transformative this method can be. One telling illustration is the story of Marcus, a quiet but diligent university student who for years tried to fit into his competitive academic environment. Marcus masked his true personality and hesitations, constantly adapting his interests to match whoever he was around. The toll was invisible but severe. Undercurrents of anxiety, burnout, and loneliness left him feeling perpetually on the outside, regardless of how well he blended in. After a counselor led him through an in-depth values identification exercise, Marcus identified authenticity, connection, and curiosity as pillars he had ignored in pursuit of a borrowed ideal of success. Guided by his newfound awareness, Marcus started to take measured steps, joining creative groups, speaking honestly about his hopes, and openly admitting both mistakes and learning curves. These small but deliberate moves drew people toward his authenticity and built friendships that were rooted in real connection. Most importantly, the persistent, grinding exhaustion of living a borrowed life faded. He described a profound shift in his overall mental health, calling it nothing less than a relief to finally measure his success by standards he defined, rather than those he inherited. The effectiveness of this approach is found in its ability to withstand the constant barrage of messages, opinions, and comparisons that threaten to sway your course. By nurturing clarity about what matters most, your mind naturally filters out distractions and stands strong against doubt, shame, and social noise. The stability you build grows stronger each time you ground a choice in your values, creating a positive feedback loop that leads to increased self-assurance and diminished dependence on fleeting validation. In a world urging others to dictate your worth, Standing firmly rooted in your chosen values is both a radical and urgent act of self-protection, one that heals you from inside out and prepares you for a future led by authentic direction. Building your own framework of personal values is an empowering process that starts with simple reflection and grows stronger with every decision you make. Begin by setting aside 10 quiet minutes in your day with pen and paper or your favorite note-taking app. Let your mind wander back to moments when you felt pure happiness or deep frustration. These emotional peaks often point to underlying values. Jot down events, places, or conversations that spark strong reactions, positive or negative. Then ask yourself, what about those experiences mattered so much? Perhaps you felt happiest supporting a friend, which signals a value of loyalty, or most irritated when forced to cut corners, hinting at a value of integrity. Aim to gather 3 to 5 words or short phrases that resonate viscerally. It's less about crafting a perfect list and more about uncovering the anchor points within your personality. Once you've drafted your list, put each value to the test by imagining a common dilemma. For example, if growth appears on your list, picture a choice between staying comfortable or taking on a new challenge. Notice which option pulls at your core. Even quietly, your values provide answers. To cement your connection, write a short statement for each value, such as, I choose growth over comfort, even when it feels hard. Or, I choose honesty, even if it means disappointing others. This personalized script becomes a whisper of affirmation in moments of uncertainty, calming your mind and making your next move clearer. To turn this reflection into action, try a 1-week values journal. Each morning, scan your calendar and mark a moment where you expect a decision, a conversation, or even a mundane task. Before you engage, remind yourself of your top value and ask, how can I express this value in what I do today? Maybe you'll be tempted to agree with a colleague even though you feel differently. Pause for a second, remember your intention to value courage or authenticity, and practice a gentle, honest reply. Review your experience in a nightly notebook entry. Even tiny actions, like defending an idea in a meeting or making space for a hobby you once loved, qualify as real victories in living by your values. If at any step you feel overwhelmed, return to small wins. Acknowledge progress every time you say no to something that contradicts your values, or when you carve out even a few minutes for a passion project. Personal growth accelerates when celebrated, so savor these moments. They are proof your inner framework is growing steadily stronger and clearer. Over time, the emotional security and energy you gain from living in line with your values become self-sustaining, naturally resisting outside pressure and lifting your optimism. With your values defined and reflected in regular action, you'll find decision-making clearer, relationships more authentic, and self-respect soaring. This foundation will serve as your shield and guide for every challenge ahead. In the next chapter, we will build on this momentum by exploring how to uncover and nurture unwavering inner confidence, the spark that turns belief and values into a courageous life. If you're finding empowerment on this journey, don't forget to subscribe to Mindset Liberation and let us know what value most excites or surprises you. Your insights, questions, and stories keep these conversations alive and growing. They're the proof that real change is possible for anyone willing to begin. Chapter 4. Embrace Inner Confidence. Confidence is not a gift handed down by fate or stamped into a lucky few at birth. It is an inner force that anyone can ignite and nurture, no matter their history or current situation. Inner confidence is the authentic belief in your capacity to handle life as yourself, consistently and unapologetically. In a world where doubt and comparison seep into every corner, learning to generate unwavering self-trust becomes a vital solution. This force comes not from meeting shifting standards set by others, but by standing firm on your own values and acting from a foundation of self-respect and acceptance, no matter how the outside world moves around you. Evidence shows that when your actions align with your innermost beliefs, confidence naturally blooms within, growing stronger each time you act in accordance with who you truly are. The origins of this solution lie in both psychology and the collective wisdom of lived experience. Renowned psychologist Dr. Albert Bandura famously coined the concept of self-efficacy, the conviction that one can succeed in specific situations. His decades of research revealed that those who consistently take small actions that mirror their genuine intentions see the fastest rises in lasting confidence. One significant study published in the journal Motivation and Emotion followed two groups of professionals, one trained to practice daily self-affirmations grounded in true personal strengths, and the other not. After just a month, those in the self-affirmation group reported significantly lower levels of self-doubt and performance anxiety, and greater willingness to take on new challenges compared to their peers. The data was especially compelling for individuals recovering from setbacks. Even when confronted by criticism or failure, those who had developed internal confidence habits bounced back with optimism and resilience, rather than discouragement or withdrawal. Real stories echo these findings through every field and walk of life. Take Ravi, an introverted graphic designer who shrank away from sharing ideas in meetings despite his clear artistic vision. For years, Ravi's inner voice was clouded by the feedback loops of comparison and fear. He worried others would judge him or outright dismiss his opinions. Little by little, Ravi began building daily routines of reflecting on his best qualities and replaying moments when he had solved a tough problem, supported a teammate, or created something beautiful. Instead of looking outward for validation, Ravi focused on gathering and remembering his personal wins, however small. With time and commitment, his confidence emerged not as bluster, but as a quiet, rooted sense of, "I am enough." The change was evident to those around him. He volunteered ideas more often, became more willing to accept criticism as learning instead of threat, and felt a steady calm he'd never known. His journey is proof that anyone, regardless of temperament or past hesitations, can claim the power to strengthen their inner confidence. What stands out across research and real life is that inner confidence is not built by ignoring uncertainties or pretending to be invincible. Instead, it develops by embracing your whole self, strengths, limitations, and aspirations alike, and nurturing a resilient belief in your capacity to keep moving forward again and again. With this chapter, you step into the active role of cultivating self-trust, discovering how consistently grounded confidence allows you to thrive in environments that might once have held you back. Each moment you choose to express your true self becomes an exercise in growth, proving that the foundation you need already resides within you, waiting to be claimed and strengthened. Inner confidence works so effectively against self-doubt, anxiety, and the exhaustion of constant comparison because it shifts the very foundation from which you engage with the world. The roots of many mental health struggles lie in the relentless habit of outsourcing your self-worth to others, placing your sense of correctness and adequacy in the hands of external approval, praise, or status. This method, however, encourages you to internalize the standards by which you measure your own worth and performance. When practiced with honesty and intent, it becomes a shield and a wellspring, fortifying you against the ups and downs of public opinion or unpredictable circumstances. Research substantiates the transformative nature of this approach. Neuroscientific studies have shown that people who regularly practice self-affirmation and internal confidence-building exercises demonstrate changes in neural activity, particularly in the brain's medial prefrontal cortex, the region associated with self-reflection and value integration. In practical terms, this rewiring means that individuals become less reactive to threats or slights from the outside world, and instead process them as neutral feedback. A landmark experiment from UCLA invited participants to document daily acts of self-appreciation, however minor, for 4 weeks. By tracking their emotional resilience through both self-reports and physiological stress markers, the researchers found that individuals who consistently practiced these habits showed a 40% reduction in reported social anxiety and recovered more quickly from emotionally charged events than those who did not. The depth of these results becomes even clearer when explored through a real-life transformation. Sophia, a young teacher navigating the ruthless feedback culture of her first school, began her career feeling overwhelmingly defensive and uncertain. Every critical comment, whether from administration, colleagues, or parents, felt like an indictment, planting seeds of doubt that soon grew into anxiety and sleepless nights. Recognizing her struggle, Sophia's mentor encouraged her to build her own ledger of self-trust. Each evening, she wrote down 3 meaningful actions she had taken that day, even small ones like supporting a nervous student or managing an unexpected disruption calmly. When anxiety threatened, she rehearsed reminders of these bright spots, pairing them with deep breaths and a quiet review of her most valued strengths. The changes took weeks, not days, but the shift became undeniable. The more Sophia returned to her own record of positive actions, the less sway negative feedback had over her well-being. Eventually, her measured self-respect gave her room to receive constructive criticism without spiraling or shrinking. Separating your confidence from the shifting winds of external reaction is not the same as ignoring reality. Rather, it means proportionally weighing outside input against your informed self-knowledge. This method cuts through the mind's tendency to enlarge negative feedback or minimize achievements, a mental bias linked to anxiety and imposter syndrome, according to cognitive behavioral research. With every reinforcement of self-driven confidence, you practice recalibrating that bias. Over time, the protective shell this creates allows for risk-taking, open dialogue, and healthy growth. It is an urgent antidote for a world flooded with noise, expectation, and instant comparison, nurturing your resilience in a way that no fleeting compliment can. Embracing inner confidence is not about arrogance or ignoring necessary growth. It is a fiercely compassionate act of solidarity with yourself, forging stability underfoot, even as life's current swirls around you. Each act of internal affirmation carves out space for your voice, ensuring it grows clearer and steadier over time. This transformation is not instant, but its rewards, the freedom, calm, and courage that come from living anchored in your core, are lasting and profound. Embracing inner confidence is not just a lofty aspiration. It is a set of practical habits you can cultivate, one action and thought at a time. Begin each morning by spending 2 minutes on a deliberate acknowledgement of your strengths. Look into the mirror and state aloud 3 qualities or skills you respect in yourself, no matter how simple or small. For some, it could be the patience shown in a tough conversation the day before. For others, the reliability with which they start the day or care for loved ones. These declarations may feel awkward at first, but repetition pulls them gradually into the fabric of your self-perception. Science shows that the act of affirming positive traits creates neurological tracks that make confidence easier to access in moments of challenge. To deepen these effects, practice a daily evidence journal in which you record specific moments where you demonstrated problem-solving, kindness, perseverance, or creativity. What matters is not the magnitude of the achievement, but the conscious act of spotting your effort. If self-doubt creeps in or a setback rattles you, deliberately pause and read from this record, retracing your steps to remind yourself of proof, not just possibility. This forms a library of strengths you can access when anxiety whispers that you are not enough. Another way to strengthen inner confidence is through friendly reflection, asking 1 or 2 trusted allies to share moments when they saw you shine, then allowing yourself to accept and integrate this feedback without deflection. Each story shared by others becomes another brick in the resilient wall of internal trust. Additionally, transform the way you respond to setbacks by deliberately reframing them as training for inner resilience, rather than as verdicts on your worth. Next time you make a mistake, offer yourself the same kindness and encouragement you would extend to a friend. Say, "This is a part of my growth, not a reason to doubt myself," and review your evidence journal for reassurance. Even the smallest reframing, repeated with compassion, keeps negative self-talk from digging deeper ruts in your mind. Another easily learned skill is to challenge your inner critic directly. When you hear self-doubt, reply quietly with a factual statement about a recent effort or improvement. Shifting the inner narrative as soon as criticism appears keeps it in check and boosts the habit of self-validation. Building inner confidence invites you to notice and celebrate every small win, such as speaking up in a group, tackling a new project, or making a healthy boundary for yourself. Mark these moments on a physical calendar or digital tracker and reward yourself as you hit each one. Confidence is like a muscle. The more you train and applaud progress, the more readily it serves you, bringing real momentum you can feel. Choose one new action from these exercises each week. Let yourself build success in layers, and soon your trust in yourself will feel natural rather than forced. With consistent and compassionate attention to these steps, you will find the fabric of your confidence thickening, holding strong even as external pressures shift or judgments try to creep in. Over time, your actions, words, and ambitions will reflect an authentic strength visible to others and, most importantly, felt deeply by you. In the next chapter, you'll explore how this renewed confidence gives you the power to navigate criticism with grace and tenacity, turning even sharp words from others into opportunities for learning and authentic self-expression. If you found today's chapter helpful or have experiences to share about your journey to more inner confidence, please subscribe to Mindset Liberation and leave your stories or reflections in the comments. Your voice brings this supportive community to life, and together we make personal liberation attainable, step by empowering step. Chapter 5. Handle criticism with strength. Criticism, no matter its form or intent, can test even the firmest confidence and threaten to unravel months or years of hard-won progress. Yet the true secret is this: you possess within you the resilience to turn any critique into a stepping stone for growth instead of a stumbling block for your self-worth. Handling criticism with strength goes beyond toughening up or putting on a brave face. It is about cultivating a mindset that views feedback, even when rough or hurtful, through a lens of intelligent self-respect and purposeful learning. When you can meet criticism with clarity, rather than fear or anger, you reclaim your power and transform uncomfortable moments into opportunities for deeper self-mastery. This solution is rooted not just in theory or inspiration, but in science and lived experience that prove we are all capable of developing this fortitude, no matter how sensitive or self-doubting we may feel. The origins of this transformative ability can be traced back to cognitive behavioral research and performance psychology. Dr. Carol Dweck, widely known for her pioneering work on growth mindset, showed in her decades of studies that people who learn to see criticism as information rather than insult are far more likely to persist, adapt, and ultimately thrive. The core of their success is not that they avoid mistakes or harsh words, but that they see them as options for growth, not verdicts on their character. According to a landmark Stanford University study, participants who received process praise, focused on their efforts rather than personal judgment, exhibited far less anxiety and greater resilience over time. Those who actively embraced structured guidelines for handling criticism felt less emotionally destabilized, were more willing to try new or difficult things, and recovered their confidence much faster after setbacks, even when the feedback was delivered bluntly. On a personal level, these findings come alive in the stories of people taking ownership over tough feedback every day. Take Emmanuel, for example, an early career manager recently promoted to lead a fast-moving project team. The first months were a barrage of assessments from superiors, stakeholders, and even well-intentioned coworkers, some fair, others less so. Initially, Emmanuel felt gutted by negative remarks, internalizing every word as evidence he was out of his depth. That changed when he began approaching criticism differently, by recognizing his emotional response, reframing feedback through the lens of effort and learning, and setting boundaries for which opinions he allowed to shape his actions. He realized every team dynamic, complaint, or suggestion contained grains of useful information about the project and even himself, but not every critique was an accurate measure of his ability or character. With practice, Emmanuel developed a steadier ability to sort through what was constructive and what was simply noise. Instead of shrinking back, he stayed open, learning from the helpful bits while letting the rest pass through him. Over time, not only did his performance improve, but his inner sense of worth became rooted and secure, even under scrutiny. Experiences like Emmanuel's reveal how common and surmountable the blow of criticism is. Studies show nearly 74% of professionals rate fear of criticism as their leading source of workplace stress. Yet those who build the skills of resilient reception unlock doors to confidence and growth that others miss. By remembering that critique, no matter how sharp or unsolicited, is never the final word on your story, you step into a place of choice and power. This chapter offers actionable hope. You can develop the perspective and techniques needed to transform the sting of criticism into genuine strength, showing you that each piece of feedback is no threat to your core, and every response is another opportunity to claim your true potential. Handling criticism with strength stands out as a vital tool in transforming vulnerability into resilience because it rewires your relationship with discomfort, turning what once felt like a personal attack into a pathway for learning and progress. The essence of this method is rooted in your response. Instead of allowing criticism to trigger defensive narratives of inadequacy or shame, this approach trains you to see feedback, no matter how harsh or poorly delivered, not as a statement about your worth, but as data to consider and, when useful, integrate. This shift radically alters the emotional impact of hard words, reducing the stress they produce and preserving your inner calm. When you consistently process criticism from a place of inquisitiveness and self-possession rather than reflexive hurt, you gradually build immunity to the destructive effects of negative evaluation and strengthen your ability to move forward with clarity and agency. Evidence supporting this viewpoint is increasingly robust. A study in the journal Emotion demonstrated that people trained in cognitive reappraisal techniques, stepping back mentally and blurting feedback into facts rather than personal attacks, experienced markedly less anxiety and emotional turmoil after receiving criticism. They reported greater satisfaction in their personal and professional interactions and maintained stronger self-esteem, even when the feedback was tough or undeserved. Neuroscientific research has revealed related findings. The brains of those who habitually apply perspective-taking and purposeful detachment light up in areas associated with rational analysis and growth, rather than threat and withdrawal. This means that over time, every intentional act of reframing criticism strengthens your mental habits and changes your emotional wiring in measurable ways. Stories of transformation reinforce the science. Consider Lena, a talented writer struggling to embrace feedback from her editor. In her early career, every tracked comment or suggested revision, no matter how constructive, triggered waves of self-doubt that silenced her creativity for days. It was only after learning to apply the principles of strength-based criticism management that Lena made a powerful breakthrough. She started by distinguishing between comments that could genuinely help her craft and those rooted in style preference. Gradually, Lena shifted from seeing revision marks as proof of failure to recognizing them as gifts, evidence that her work was being taken seriously and refined. Adopting this perspective, she felt less devastated by editing and became more receptive to critique, even proactively seeking out feedback as a tool for improvement. The result was dramatic. Her writing evolved, opportunities multiplied, and her sense of professional identity flourished despite ongoing critical evaluation. This method's transformative potential lies in its consistent reinforcement of your autonomy in any evaluative moment. By accepting that criticism is rarely the sum total of your ability or worth, and by separating emotion from opportunity, you break a cycle that keeps so many people locked in hesitation, fear, or self-editing. You become able to view yourself and your growth with balance, sensitive to helpful direction, but no longer at the mercy of others' opinions. The sense of urgency comes from the reality that, in our hyper-connected world, scrutiny is nearly unavoidable. Developing this inner filter is not merely a defensive maneuver, but a proactive way to preserve your creativity and forward motion, regardless of outside judgment. By integrating these tools, criticism ceases to be a threat and instead becomes one more instrument under your command, a means of building a durable, constructive confidence for every challenge and ambition that lies ahead. Transforming your response to criticism begins with the very first moment you feel its sting. The goal is to separate the emotional surge from your next move and approach the feedback with purposeful calm. When criticism arrives, pause before reacting. Take one slow, deliberate breath and remind yourself that feedback, whether gentle or harsh, is information, not a verdict on your worth. This pause alone reduces emotional intensity, giving you just enough space to prevent automatic defensiveness or self-judgment from taking over. Now shift your thought pattern. Instead of asking, "What is wrong with me?" prompt yourself with, "What, if anything, can I learn from this?" Or, "Is there anything here that might help me grow?" This question puts you in an active, curious mindset and empowers you to mine even tough feedback for useful elements. For even greater control, adopt the practice of constructive sorting. With each piece of criticism, consciously divide it into 3 mental piles: genuinely useful input, personal opinions or preferences, and observations that do not serve your growth. Make a habit of writing these down when confronted with significant feedback, so your rational mind commands the process. Focus only on the pile that is actionable and in your best interest. Disregarding personal attacks, stylistic disagreements, or vague disapproval protects your well-being while ensuring real opportunities for improvement are embraced. This not only reduces the chance of internalizing negative noise, but fosters an objective, almost analytical approach to managing critique. Regular reflection also accelerates resilience. Set aside a few minutes after any critique, real or anticipated, to note how you responded, what you felt, and whether you managed to separate fact from feeling. Each entry in your criticism journal, no matter how brief, becomes a track record of improvement and strengthens your ability to stay centered during future feedback. If you notice a recurring criticism that stirs discomfort, try discussing it openly with a mentor or ally, taking pride in your courage to face uncomfortable truths with equanimity. Over time, you'll begin to welcome useful critique as a route to your best self, and your anxiety around harsh words will fade with every practice round. To build immediate momentum, celebrate every small win. Every time you pause before responding, sift through criticism instead of accepting all of it, or use feedback to improve a skill. Mark it down as proof that your approach is working. Let every example of thoughtful handling affirm your progress. It's evidence that you are building a shield of intelligent self-respect that no careless opinion can pierce. The more deliberately you train this response, the more automatic and natural hardship resilience becomes, transitioning you from anxious recipient to empowered participant in any evaluative exchange. This action-oriented mindset shields your creativity and optimism from needless bruising and rewires your brain to lean into feedback with open eyes rather than flinching away in fear. As your confidence in handling criticism grows, you'll discover new freedoms in expressing yourself and pursuing challenges without fear of being undone by unexpected feedback. Looking ahead, our next chapter will reveal the art of speaking up with intention, how to use your voice to influence and inspire, not merely to be accepted. If you found value in this chapter, or want to share your examples of transforming tough criticism into personal power, subscribe to Mindset Liberation and let your stories, advice, or wishes for the series be known in the comments below. Every shared insight and milestone strengthens our community, proving there is wisdom to be found and strength to be built in facing even life's harshest words. Chapter 6. Speak Up with Purpose. Your voice is not just sound. It is the bridge between your internal truth and the world around you. The courage to speak up with purpose is the gateway to genuine influence, meaningful relationships, and self-respect. So many people spend years swallowing their best ideas out of fear, habit, or the mistaken belief that staying quiet will keep life smooth and social harmony intact. But staying silent where your voice matters most only leads to regret and feeling invisible, while finding the confidence to express yourself changes not only how others perceive you, but how deeply you believe in yourself. This chapter invites you to unlock the power of intentional communication, learning step by step how to voice your thoughts, boundaries, and dreams with clarity and impact. This solution is rooted in both ancient wisdom and contemporary research. Throughout history, those who dare to speak up, despite doubt, backlash, or uncertainty, have catalyzed personal and societal transformation. Modern psychology confirms that voicing your needs, insights, and objections is a key predictor of personal fulfillment and healthy self-esteem. In a revealing study by Harvard University researchers, participants who regularly advocated for their own perspectives in workplace and personal scenarios reported not only improved relationships, but much higher satisfaction with their lives overall. Their willingness to share candid feedback and assert boundaries correlated strongly with lower stress, better mental health, and a sense of personal agency. The study concluded that genuine dialogue, even when challenging, is essential for cultivating resilience and confidence. These findings are seen every day in the experiences of people like Layla, a dedicated social worker for whom conflict was once a source of dread. Early in her career, Layla avoided expressing concerns in meetings, believing deference was safer. But as pressures mounted and her silence translated into frustration, she realized her best intentions, and even her effectiveness, were being stifled for fear of rocking the boat. With the support of a mentor, Layla started preparing her words and speaking up, beginning with small but clear contributions and building up to more decisive conversations about her values and needs. Week by week, she noticed that not only did her colleagues show more respect, but she herself began to feel entirely different, steadier, animated, and proud to stand behind the work she cared about. Research reflects just how widespread this internal struggle is. In a global survey by the International Communication Association, nearly 60% of participants admitted to holding back ideas, raising concerns, or refusing to ask important questions simply from fear of judgment or reprisal. Yet among those who made it a practice to speak up constructively, despite occasional nerves, the vast majority reported a rebound in motivation, professional progression, and personal empowerment. The data and stories are unmistakable. Having a voice and using it with intent isn't a privilege for the naturally bold. It's a skill and a right anyone can develop. No matter how anxious you've been or how long you've remained quiet, transforming your communication begins with one decision: to start and to keep moving step by step. Trust that today, the power to change your voice and claim your space belongs to you. The method of speaking up with purpose is profoundly effective because it directly addresses and slowly dissolves the paralyzing effects of social anxiety, passive resentment, and chronic self-doubt. At its core, giving yourself permission to voice your truths is a reclaiming of agency. When you decide to express what you think, need, or believe in the moments that count, you interrupt the cycle of silencing yourself into frustration or invisibility. Each act of purposeful speech challenges centuries of ingrained beliefs about compliance and self-effacement, rewriting the blueprint in your mind for what is possible in relationships, workplaces, and even in dialogue with yourself. Psychological research strongly supports this solution. Assertiveness training, a therapeutic approach designed to help individuals articulate their boundaries and perspectives, has consistently shown lasting benefits for mental health. In a sweeping meta-analysis published in the journal Psychological Bulletin, over 70 studies were reviewed, establishing that intentional and assertive communication reduces symptoms of depression, social anxiety, and even physical stress markers, such as heart rate and cortisol levels. The very act of choosing to use your voice rebalances the power dynamic in interpersonal exchanges, creating new neural patterns that link self-expression to relief and calm, rather than only to discomfort or risk of negative fallout. That shift, neurologically and emotionally, is vital to breaking out of a history of silence. A real-life transformation that highlights the power of this method revolves around Jason, a mid-level engineer who had quietly endured years of feeling sidelined in meetings. Despite having sharp insights, his reluctance to speak up stemmed from a fear of sounding foolish or causing conflict. This pattern meant his talents often went unnoticed, and his frustration simmered beneath the surface, eroding his job satisfaction and confidence. After enrolling in an assertiveness workshop at his company, one focused specifically on purposeful communication, Jason learned practical frameworks for voicing his points clearly and respectfully. One technique involves stating his perspective using I statements, such as, "I believe this approach could improve our process because," which allowed him to join the conversation without appearing confrontational. As Jason practiced these skills in real settings, he quickly found that not only did his nerves settle with repetition, but colleagues often welcomed his contributions and even sought out his ideas. His anxiety diminished sharply, and his self-regard grew as he saw real proof of his impact. Over several months, this small behavioral change cascaded into larger benefits. His managers took note of his increased visibility, new project opportunities opened up, and his relationships reached a new level of respect and authenticity. In the occasional moments where his statements faced disagreement, Jason now had the resilience to stay present rather than retreat, leading to honest, sometimes tough conversations that ultimately strengthened team trust. This process is urgent because silence, when chronic, gradually erodes a person's sense of presence and value. Consistently withholding your voice trains your mind to expect insignificance and closes doors both personally and professionally. Conversely, choosing to speak up, even in small, purposeful ways, generates lasting psychological resilience, improved health, and the steady pride that comes from knowing you can advocate for what really matters to you. This method is not about dominating conversation or demanding agreement, but about inhabiting your own life fully, taking your rightful place, word by word, moment by moment, until even the urge to withdrawal dissolves in the practice of purposeful self-expression. Speaking up with purpose is a skill you can build up gradually, with each new effort transforming a bit of self-doubt into honest, visible strength. To start, choose one small situation each day where you'd normally hold back. Perhaps answering a question in a meeting, stating a preference to friends, or simply sharing an observation at dinner. Before speaking, take a calm, centering breath and remind yourself that your words have value. Prepare a simple sentence or two in your mind, and when your opportunity comes, deliver it without over-explaining or apologizing. After you've spoken, reward yourself with quiet praise, no matter the outcome, a gentle acknowledgement that you did something new and worthwhile. Build this confidence by practicing I statements, a classic assertiveness technique proven to lower nerves and reduce misunderstanding. Instead of framing feedback indirectly or passively, say, I think, I feel, or I need, making your contribution clearly about your experience. This approach signals to others that you respect yourself and communicate boundaries, while inviting open, respectful discussion. As you practice, write down reflections after each attempt. What did you say? How did you feel? What was the response? And what can you try next time? This journaling becomes a tangible record of your progress and insight. For challenging situations where stakes feel higher, rehearse scenarios out loud or with a trusted friend. You can script answers for difficult questions or build up phrases for interruption or disagreement, such as, I see your point, but I have a different perspective, or I'd like to add an idea here. Performing these exercises in a safe context helps your brain absorb assertiveness as a normal, safe response, which makes it easier to try under real pressure. Be patient with yourself. If your heart races or your voice shakes in the moment, frame it as evidence of growing courage rather than embarrassment. Over time, what once felt risky becomes more ordinary and empowering. Notice and celebrate every clear expression you accomplish. Even a brief statement of preference counts. I'd actually like to eat at the Italian place, or I'd love a few minutes of quiet. Each time you do this, regardless of outcome, you reinforce the habit of purposeful speech. If your attempt meets silence or dismissal, remind yourself that speaking up is the win, not the approval you receive. Real change happens not in giant leaps, but in the routine, repeated practice of using your voice deliberately and authentically. As you string together more moments of clarity, your self-trust and sense of place naturally grow along with your courage. With these exercises in place, you'll discover yourself stepping forward in conversations, rising to defend your boundaries, and eagerly contributing ideas where they matter. You'll no longer live in the shadow of what you wished you'd said, but instead shine with the confidence of someone who stands in their truth. In the next chapter, we will explore how to live every day with deep authenticity, revealing ways to keep your freedom in spaces where outside pressures try to box you in. If finding and using your own purposeful voice has inspired you, subscribe to Mindset Liberation, like this chapter, and leave a comment about your small victories, ongoing challenges, or hopes for future topics. Your stories make this community stronger, and together we become braver with every empowered word spoken. Chapter 7. Live authentically, stay free. Freedom does not simply arrive when others finally approve of your choices or when circumstances become perfect. True freedom emerges the moment you choose to live authentically, regardless of who is watching or judging. Living authentically is the long-term antidote to the suffocating pressure of constant adaptation, the ultimate solution to reclaiming a life on your own terms. When you let your truest values, perspectives, and dreams shape your actions every day, you find yourself anchored and untouchable, no longer searching for external validation or fearing tomorrow's trend. The journey to lasting personal freedom starts with this decision, to live boldly as yourself, in big moments and small, guided by the compass of your honest self. The origins of this approach reach back through centuries of spiritual teachings and philosophical counsel, from the ancient Stoics, who championed integrity above gossip, to modern psychologists who link authenticity directly to emotional stability and well-being. Leading researcher Dr. Brené Brown has highlighted in her groundbreaking studies that living authentically acts as a buffer against anxiety and shame, cultivating resilience and a deeper sense of belonging, not to any group, but to yourself. In one illuminating survey of more than 1,000 participants, published in the Journal of Counseling Psychology, those who rated themselves as highly authentic experienced 30% less chronic stress and twice the reported sense of personal meaning compared to those who lived primarily to please or conform to others' standards. Authenticity does not mean perfection. It means an honest, consistent effort to close the gap between your inner reality and your outer expression. Real stories abound to show just how universal and transformative this journey is. Nadia, a mid-career nurse, spent years carefully managing her words and behavior to match the expectations and moods of those around her, colleagues, friends, and even family. Each decision to hide her feelings or downplay her ambitions seemed harmless at first, but gradually it drained her energy and sense of purpose. Only when Nadia finally began honoring her preferences, speaking candidly with her loved ones, and reminding herself daily that her perspective mattered, did her life begin to open and lighten. She noticed that her circles shifted. Some connections deepened into true relationships, while others faded as the need for pretense disappeared. Most importantly, Nadia described a steady return of calm, creative spark, and self-respect. Her path echoed research showing that authentic living enables emotional recovery from setbacks, heightens day-to-day satisfaction, and forms the strongest foundation against mental exhaustion. The power of this mindset lies in its permanence. Trends, roles, and challenges will come and go, but living authentically provides consistent guidance, regardless of shifts in your environment or in public opinion. This way, freedom is not a distant destination, but a continual daily practice. Every decision, conversation, and habit becomes an opportunity to reaffirm who you are. As you step into the chapters of your life with authenticity, you realize that meaning and possibility multiply when you bring your full self to every experience. This chapter is your invitation to cast off the lingering weight of imitation and choose, courageously, joyfully, to inhabit all parts of yourself in every setting, knowing that true fulfillment flows only from a life fully and honestly lived. Living authentically is so profoundly effective in overcoming the problem of chronic conformity and invisible self-abandonment because it disrupts the exhausting loop of approval-seeking and internal conflict. When you begin aligning your day-to-day actions with your true values, preferences, and beliefs, you end the draining practice of guessing who you should become for others and put your energy toward becoming more fully yourself. This alignment acts as an antidote to anxiety, low-grade depression, and the troubling sense of feeling lost that so often grows out of a life absorbed in pleasing others. The mental fatigue that comes from constant mask-wearing and second-guessing is gradually replaced with a resilient sense of ease, clarity, and peace. Instead of fearing exclusion or loss, you gain the capacity to welcome connection with people who value you as you genuinely are, building relationships that nourish rather than exhaust your spirit. Scientific research offers powerful validation of this effect. In a well-known study from the Department of Psychology at the University of Houston, researchers tracked people who demonstrated high levels of authentic living, meaning they acted in harmony with their identity and openly shared their thoughts and feelings. These individuals reported greater psychological well-being, lower likelihood of burnout, and significantly stronger inner motivation compared to participants identified as high in self-monitoring, those whose primary focus was on managing impressions to secure acceptance. The researchers discovered that authentic people rebounded more quickly from setbacks and were less swayed by criticism or social fads because their sense of direction came from an internal, coherent source, not external moods. Their emotional stability came not from controlling their surroundings, but from trusting their inner compass, even when others disapproved. Long-term, the benefits included not only improved mental health, but also better performance in relationships and work, since the mental bandwidth once absorbed by self-censoring was channeled into creativity and commitment. The lived journeys of those who have committed to authenticity underscore these findings with vivid clarity. Take the example of Marco, once a marketing executive notorious among peers for his relentless adaptability. He sculpted his opinions and priorities to fit whatever boardroom or friendship he found himself in. Beneath his professional polish, however, Marco felt a quiet emptiness, a nagging sense that he was drifting through roles rather than living in truth. When overwhelming fatigue and anxiety forced him to re-examine his life, Marco worked with a counselor to identify the ways small self-betrayals added up over time. He gradually learned to name and advocate for his true opinions, not in defiance, but in pursuit of alignment with his values. This changed everything. Marco's genuine input brought innovative ideas to his organization, fostered friendships anchored in honesty, and gave him the freedom to walk away when a situation no longer matched his sense of purpose. The improvement in his well-being was unmistakable. He reported sleeping better, feeling energized in his days, and encountering setbacks with more resilience and less fear. Simply put, living authentically isn't just about comfort or self-expression. It's the foundation for sustainable mental health and the authentic, empowered enjoyment of your one life. Each choice made in this spirit, even when hard, teaches your mind and body that safety and satisfaction arise from self-consistency, not imitation. In a world always offering new templates for success or acceptance, the ability to choose your own becomes your ultimate source of strength and equilibrium. Living authentically, day after day, is a commitment built on conscious choice. To put this method into action, begin by dedicating a moment each morning to review your core values and intentions. Before your day officially begins, ground yourself by quietly affirming, "Today I will honor my real thoughts and feelings." This simple declaration sets an expectation for presence and courage, priming your mind to choose alignment over adaptation. As you move through your routine, pay attention to points where you feel yourself drifting toward pleasing others at the expense of your own needs, or quieting your perspective in the name of avoiding friction. When those moments come, pause, even for a single breath, and ask, what would I truly say or do here if I were free from judgment? Let yourself practice giving voice to your true answer first, even if you opt for a softer presentation in public. That initial private honesty forms the foundation for outward action. To gently stretch the muscle of authentic self-expression, try creating a true north journal to capture small choices you make that honor your real self. Saying no to an unnecessary obligation, wearing an outfit that reflects your personality, or stating a genuine opinion in a safe conversation. Make a regular habit of documenting at least one authentic action every day, however small. This is crucial. Celebrating minor wins rewires your mind to seek and savor self-alignment, which steadily grows into greater acts of courage and transparency. On days when the social urge to fit in feels especially powerful, use your entries as encouragement, remembering you've already proven to yourself that authenticity is possible and rewarding. In tougher scenarios, such as standing up to a subtle criticism or resisting peer pressure, it helps to script potential responses ahead of time. Choose words or phrases that feel authentic and kind, such as, "That doesn't really resonate with me," or "I appreciate your view, but I feel differently." Rehearse these quietly so that when the real moment arrives, your body and mind have a safe path to follow, making sincerity feel more familiar than pretending. It's important to notice the signals your body sends during these interactions. Nerves or awkwardness don't mean you're doing it wrong, but that you're warming up the honest, vulnerable parts of yourself. Every time you stay true to your voice, even if your words tremble at first, you reinforce freedom. If fear of rejection or misunderstanding holds you back, remember that authenticity filters your world. People and situations that value your truth will stick, and those that don't will fade. This may feel challenging, but with each small act, your environment gradually adapts to welcome more of your genuine self. Each week, treat yourself to a reflective check-in, noting which authentic actions came easily and where you hesitated. With every reflection and step forward, tailor your next stretch goal, perhaps sharing a personal story, asking for what you need, or setting a firmer boundary. Momentum quickly builds. Soon, acting authentically will stop feeling like a leap and become your form of second nature. Over time, you'll notice that stress eases, decisions sharpen, and relationships deepen, all as a natural consequence of living with honesty at your center. You don't have to transform everything at once. Celebrate each instance where you chose presence over pretense. Bit by bit, you're writing your freedom into each day, just by showing up as yourself, cultivating the unique life that only you can live. As you reach the end of this journey, remember that every chapter in this book has offered you practical tools to reclaim your autonomy and protect your mental well-being in a world that often rewards conformity and silence. From recognizing the subtle power of the herd mentality, to questioning popular beliefs, defining your own values, nurturing lasting inner confidence, handling criticism with strength, and speaking up with purpose, each step equips you to live authentically and remain free from unnecessary pressures. True growth begins with the courage to think for yourself and follow your own compass, even in the face of challenge or uncertainty. The path to a healthier, more fulfilling life opens when you become the author of your story. Thank you for dedicating your time and energy to learning and growing with Mindset Liberation. If you found value in these lessons, please like this video, share your thoughts or questions in the comments below, and subscribe to our channel for more empowering content. Your voice and presence help us build a supportive community for all who wish to rise beyond the urge to fit in, one strong, liberated mindset at a time.